They are calling it hide and seek with death. That is the phrase Ukrainian troops near Pokrovsk are using to describe what it means to rotate soldiers, evacuate the wounded, and deliver ammunition in a sector where Russian drones own the sky so completely that any vehicle moving in daylight is a near-certain death sentence. Any fixed position held too long becomes a target for the thermal imaging cameras on surveillance drones circling overhead around the clock. Any movement in groups larger than a handful of soldiers risks detection before the movement can be completed. Ukrainian positions in northern Pokrovsk are, as of May 18, 2026, almost cut off. The military statement from Ukrainian forces on the ground made no effort to soften this reality. Russian drone superiority has made troop rotations nearly impossible. Evacuations of the wounded are being conducted in darkness, in small groups, moving as fast as terrain allows, and hoping the thermal signatures of moving bodies do not register on overhead surveillance feeds before they reach cover. Resupply missions that once took hours now take days, when they happen at all. And in the middle of this crisis, on the same night that Ukrainian forces in northern Pokrovsk were fighting to maintain supply lines under drone siege, Zelensky made a move that virtually no one saw coming. He revealed that Ukraine had obtained internal Russian military documents detailing Russia's own estimated cost of this war. Not Ukrainian estimates, not Western intelligence assessments. Documents produced within the Russian government itself. Internal assessments of the financial, human, and strategic cost of the war that Moscow has been working to conceal from the outside world and from its own domestic audience. Importantly, this is specifically a Russian internal assessment, one they are trying to conceal both from the world and from their own domestic audience, Zelensky said. And at precisely the same moment, Ukraine's military intelligence confirmed that Ukrainian forces had seized control of Stepnohirsk in Zaporizhia Oblast, releasing footage of soldiers from the Artan Special Operations Unit engaging Russian forces in the town. Tonight, we examine the full picture of what is happening across Ukraine's front lines right now. We examine the Pokrovsk crisis, what it means strategically, and what it costs humanly. We examine why the revelation of Russian internal war documents is a more significant strategic move than it might appear at first. And we examine why the simultaneous capture of Stepnohirsk reveals a dimension of Zelensky's strategy that Russian military commanders have consistently failed to anticipate and counter. Because what appears from a distance as a front line under severe pressure is, with the full context of what is happening simultaneously across multiple dimensions, something considerably more complex. Pokrovsk matters because of what it is, not just where it is. Before the war, it was a city of 60,000 people. Today, heavily evacuated, it functions primarily as a logistics hub, a junction of road and rail infrastructure supplying Ukrainian forces across a broad section of the Eastern Front. If Russia captures Pokrovsk and the surrounding area, the disruption to Ukrainian supply lines would affect operations across the entire Donetsk front, potentially enabling Russian forces to begin encircling Ukrainian positions in multiple directions simultaneously. Russian forces have been pressing toward Pokrovsk for the better part of a year. The advance is slow and costly. The grinding attritional forward movement that Russian commanders have relied on because it is the only approach producing any territorial results in the current phase of this war. The casualty rate in these assault operations is staggering. Russian military bloggers acknowledge it routinely in the candid assessments they publish on Telegram channels the Kremlin has not fully suppressed. But the advance continues, because Russia still has the manpower to feed into these operations, however badly those men are being used and however catastrophically high the casualty rate. The specific problem in northern Pokrovsk is drone density. Russian drone operations in this sector have created a surveillance and strike network so persistent and so comprehensive that it denies Ukrainian forces the ability to operate normally. Surveillance drones relay real-time thermal imaging to artillery units that can respond to any detected vehicle movement within minutes. FPV attack drones are pre-positioned in networked clusters that can be vectored to any detected movement within seconds of identification. The result is what Ukrainian troops accurately describe as hide and seek with death, an environment where every movement is a potential targeting solution, and every targeting solution can become a strike within a time window too short for effective evasion. This is not permanent. Ukraine has demonstrated throughout this war the capacity to adapt to new tactical threats in ways that eventually restore operational balance. But adaptation takes time, and in the window between Russian drone dominance establishing itself and Ukraine developing effective countermeasures, Ukrainian soldiers in northern Pokrovsk are enduring some of the most difficult frontline conditions of this entire war. Now let us examine Zelensky's move with the Russian internal documents, because here is where the picture becomes significantly more complex than the immediate tactical crisis suggests. The revelation that Ukraine has obtained internal Russian government documents estimating the real cost of this war operates on multiple strategic levels simultaneously. At the first level, it strikes directly at Russia's domestic information environment. Even with the Kremlin's extensive censorship, the laws criminalizing public opposition to the war, the blocks on independent media, the fines for publishing drone strike damage without authorization, the Russian information space is not hermetically sealed. Telegram channels, personal communications, the network of information flowing between families of soldiers, all maintain channels through which reality seeps into Russian consciousness, despite official suppression. The revelation that Ukraine has internal Russian assessments that contradict the official narrative of sustainable, victorious military operations will move through those channels regardless of what state television broadcasts. At the second level, it is a message to Western governments making decisions about continued support for Ukraine. If Russia's own internal documents show higher than acknowledged costs that Moscow is actively concealing from its own population, the case that Western support is working, that sustained pressure is producing real and measurable strain on the Kremlin's war machine, is strengthened by Russia's own evidence. For legislators debating weapons packages, for parliaments considering financial commitments, Zelensky is presenting testimony from inside the Russian government itself. At the third level, it signals the depth of Ukraine's intelligence penetration into Russian government processes. If Ukraine can obtain internal Russian war cost assessments, the implication is that its sources or capabilities reach into processes the Kremlin considered secure. The uncertainty about how deep that penetration goes, about what else Ukraine has access to, is itself strategically valuable. It creates caution inside Russian government processes. It potentially degrades the quality of Russian internal decision-making by making candid internal assessment riskier. And simultaneously, in Zaporizhia, Ukrainian military intelligence confirmed the capture of Stepnohirsk. Stepnohirsk is not a major strategic hub. Its capture does not by itself alter the trajectory of the war, but it is consistent with a pattern that has been visible in Ukrainian military operations throughout this entire conflict. The maintenance of offensive pressure in multiple geographic directions simultaneously, forcing Russian commanders to divide attention, intelligence resources, and tactical reserves across a front line that stretches over 1,000 kilometers. While Russia concentrates pressure on Pokrovsk in the east, Ukraine advances in Zaporizhia in the south. While Russia launches massive drone barrages against Ukrainian energy infrastructure, Ukraine strikes Moscow and hits gas fields in Orenburg. While Russia stages nuclear drills in Belarus, Ukraine announces a domestically produced glide bomb. For every Russian action designed to concentrate Ukrainian attention and resources in one direction, Ukraine generates counterpressure that forces Russian attention to disperse. Military doctrine calls this maintaining initiative, the capacity to force the adversary to respond to your moves, rather than executing their own plan unimpeded. Ukraine has maintained a degree of strategic initiative throughout this war that has consistently surprised analysts who looked only at immediate tactical situations and concluded that a smaller, less resourced force cannot maintain initiative against a larger adversary. The soldiers in northern Pokrovsk playing hide-and-seek with death deserve to have their situation described without minimization. They are enduring some of the most difficult conditions of this entire war. Their courage is extraordinary. Their operational challenge is genuine and severe. But the full picture is this. In the same 24 hours that Pokrovsk's situation was described as almost cut off, Ukraine captured Stepnohirsk, revealed Russian internal war documents, and demonstrated the kind of multi-domain strategic pressure that has kept Russia from translating its tactical and material advantages into decisive operational results throughout 4 years of conflict. Russia lost a net 45 square miles of Ukrainian territory in the 4 weeks between mid-April and mid-May 2026, the first period since 2024 in which the territorial balance has moved in Ukraine's direction. Russia's daily territorial gains have fallen from nearly 10 square kilometers per day a year ago to less than 3 square kilometers today. Pokrovsk is under pressure. Stepnohirsk is in Ukrainian hands. Russian internal documents are in Zelensky's possession, and Ukraine's first domestically produced glide bomb is declared ready for combat. Zelensky made a move last night that no one saw coming. And in this war, the move that no one sees coming is almost always the one that changes what comes next.